When we talk about the Great Resignation, this is seeping into the corner office. 70% of C-level executives telling pollsters they seriously might resign for a job that better supports their well-being. And why it matters? If the boss who sets the rules is feeling burned out, not a surprise that many of the rank and file are also feeling the same thing. Joel Patterson, workplace expert, joining me now. Joel, does this surprise you at all?
No, it really doesn't. I mean, if you think about the last couple of years, we've spent a lot of time talking about the impacts of the pandemic and everything else on the employee. And the responsibility of the CEO or leadership in the company has been, hey, let's set the program. Let's put some boundaries in place. Let's understand where we're trying to go. And be that voice of optimism as I got through it. And then as time rolls on, it's not that much of a surprise that all of a sudden those people might feel a little neglected as well. So I think it's just a matter of everybody else kind of recognizing that, okay, these people, they have struggles that everyone else has. And maybe it's time to think about how we keep them in the best shape so that we can make sure that we continue to move forward in a positive manner.
Well, Joel, if the boss is burned out, what does it do to the entire team?
Well, everything starts at the top, right? I mean, I know that's a cliche, but if the leader of an organization is not optimistic, is not leading with courage, not doing the things that person needs to do, everybody else is going to recognize it. And even if you go back to some really large organizations, ones I've worked around where the owner has been, or the founder has been involved in the organization for 20 years, and that billion-dollar organization represents that person's personality. I mean, it's just, there's no way to get away from it. And so if they go in and they are feeling like they are too burned out to do anything, or if they aren't invested enough to be able to spend the time that they need to with their people in order to encourage them through whatever it is that they're going through, it's going to trickle down and certainly impact the overall culture of the organization, which ultimately will impact productivity and how well they're doing financially.
Let's take a look at this poll, and I want to get some comments from you. This poll was conducted in February. 76% of higher-ups said the pandemic has negatively affected their overall health. 81% said improving their own equilibrium is more important than advancing their career right now. So it used to be all about, hey, I got to get to the top, get to the top, get to the top, no matter what, Joel. Now they're saying, you know what? The top ain't what it's cracked up to be, and I got to get myself right first and foremost before I put all my energy into my job.
Yeah, again, I think it's a drinking their own Kool-Aid, right? I mean, we've been talking about this same thing for 2 years and really pushing and encouraging our employees to take time off, to make sure they're taking breaks during the day, to doing the things that they need to do to keep their mental health in check. And yet, I don't think a lot of the leadership were taking their own advice. So it's really just a step back and saying, okay, how do we make sure that we're doing what we need to do in order to set a good example for our people? Something else that I keep getting thrown around here that I think could really have an impact on people is a 4-day work week. I know that's kind of an extreme example, but I think challenging organizations to find unique ways to keep their people engaged, because regardless of what's going on with inflation and the rest of the economy, the labor market remains very tight. It's still very difficult for a lot of people to find the quality personnel that they're looking for. So anything that they can do to promote well-being, whether it's at the top or anyone else, it's going to have a long-term impact, and I think CEOs are recognizing that.
Talking to Joel Patterson right now. Joel is a workplace expert. He actually heads up the Vested Group, a firm that is always on the best places to work list. Why do you think your firm is always on the best places to work list, Joel? What do you guys do to ensure that?
We pay people. No,
Lots of money, right? Lots of money.
We pay them as well as we can. No, really, if I was going to boil it down to just a couple of simple things, one is to make sure that your employees feel valued, right? And then we have mission statements and goals. They tend to get lost in the shuffle these days, but we have a purpose, and our purpose of our organization is best job ever. And what that means is that, you imagine our employees sitting with their grandchild on their lap in 50 years, and they say, hey, what was the best job you ever had? We want them to describe their time with us. And that can mean something different for different people, obviously. But it's very simple, but it allows us to really charge forward and look for the things that make it really personal and important for that individual. And I think that's what all of this that we're talking about is finding ways to make people feel purposeful and like they're adding value to an organization. They belong to a team. They understand where it's going. They believe in the values of the organization. And, we spend a lot of time with people at work, And really, there's just so much that can happen there.
So, Joel, when we talk about this, and we're talking about CEOs wanting to quit, this boss burnout and the great resignation, there's a big disconnect between how the higher-ups perceive their efforts and what workers say. 84% of executives said they thought their workers were thriving from a mental health perspective, but only 59% of employees rated their own mental health as excellent or good. That's a big disconnect.
Yeah, that's a huge disconnect. I was pretty surprised when I saw that number, too. It's a little embarrassing for organizations, but it also just shows that there's still a lot of work to be done. We've got to, just like an organization tries to make their product sticky, if that's a term you're familiar with, we want to do the same thing with employees. We've got to find ways to make them want to be there, and a big part of that is making sure that the data that we get or the surveys that we take, they're actually real, right? You don't want to spend your time trying to fix something that isn't broken, or that you're putting solutions in place that aren't working. So keeping an eye, not just, this isn't just the CEO's job. It's also, the manager or the people that are beneath that person to make sure that they're keeping an eye on what's going on and really challenging them at times and say, hey, how you doing? Are you taking the time off? Are you not replying to emails after hours? Are you doing the things that you told us to do? Because setting a good example in that way will certainly filter down to the organization, but also make that person a better leader ultimately.
Yeah, and Joel, real quick, in about a minute and a half, how about 91% of CEOs saw themselves as caring leaders, but just 56% of workers thought the same thing? Again, big disconnect here.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't look good, but I have to believe a lot of that is a communication issue, because I know the CEOs that I work with and the other, whether clients or friends, they care. They really do. And they want to do what's right for their organization, but they don't always know. And I think that the employees don't necessarily understand that all the time. But again, it just shows that there is definitely work that we all have in front of us to continue to figure out the right way to work, the timing of that work, how to encourage and promote people. Every day is an adventure.
All right, Joel, always appreciate talking to you. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Blue Daddy.